If you want to live a
Nice.
happy life, then there's only one person responsible, and it's you.
Meet Max's Mints.
Tell me more about Max's Mints, maybe. Start there.
At Max's, we are on a mission to help people feel fresh and go green. Well, in our case, with one mint at a time. And my father and I, because it's our company, we founded Max's Mints.
Especially when Corona came along.
China has identified the cause of the
mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
What was that period like for you guys?
It was really tough. I mean, peppermint is something people eat when they're on the way.
Yeah.
And no one was on the way.
I'm curious about what it's like being a woman in this industry.
Okay, I'm going to be honest now.
Yeah.
I think it's a plus for me.
So...
No, I think there's many things that are not taught in school that could be very good.
You'll be expecting this question from me, as you just told me. But I start each podcast with the same question because it usually establishes how the rest of the conversation is going to continue. Mm-hmm. And that question is, are you happy?
Well, most of the time, certainly. I think as it is for everyone, you can't be happy 100% of the time because, you need both the mountains and the lows, to make a good life. But I guess I'm as happy as I should.
Nice.
I'm happy. Yeah.
What, in your opinion, is required to live a happy life?
I think you need to have good work-life balance. I think you also need to work on things that make your clock tick. So I can't imagine working for a cause that that doesn't, that wouldn't make me enthusiastic. And also, I guess you need to have downtime, or for me, I need to have nature time. Just being outside. I think those are some of the most important requirements.
It's interesting that you mention good work-life balance, because I believe that's one of the few things you don't really have when you're in a startup.
Yeah, you're right.
How do you make that work?
Well, it's also a choice, I suppose. I mean, I've got a company and I've got 2 small children, and they both require my attention. And it's a juggle. We struggle sometimes, but at the same time, I try to be with my kids when I'm home and at work, working when I'm at work. And of course, it doesn't work like that all the time. But I think it's about having full attention for what you're doing at the moment. So work-life balance is not just, how many times or how many hours do you put in your work and how many hours do you put in your family, but it's also being there when you're doing something. Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Currently struggling with something similar when it comes to switching off.
That's it.
Is there any tips there as to how to improve that?
Yeah, well, for me, it's, I go out into nature, as I just said, and I walk around in nature with my coach about every 6 weeks, just talking with her about, okay, how does the work-life balance go? How to switch off, how to get the downtime. And of course, I think it shouldn't be a surprise, but breathing helps, just trying to be in the moment and realizing, okay, this is where I am and it's good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. For this podcast, I have a guiding research hypothesis that passion gives purpose.
Okay.
What is your thought on that hypothesis?
Well, I think my purpose and passion, both, they came out of me. I lived in Italy for over a year when I was like 24, 25-ish. And I really saw the way people thought about food and, were working with food and how important it was for them. And for me, that's where the passion ignited to be wanting to work with good food. And then the purpose, it ran out of it. Yeah. So I suppose passion gives purpose is... Yeah, it worked like that for me. But I don't know if it works like that for everyone.
That's what I'm trying to figure out as well. How did you find that passion? Or first of all, how would you describe your passion even?
Well, I think in the Netherlands, we oftentimes see food as functional. You know, it's like fuel you need to get going. Whereas in Italy, I saw that it gave them a sense of, you know, belonging, and it gave them a sense of like family feeling. I think the passion, you know, I saw that and I felt like, okay, this is what people need, and we need that in the Netherlands too. You know, make it a moment for all of us instead of like eating your sandwich at your desk.
Yeah.
I think it's just their way of looking at it that ignited my passion. Yeah.
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 You went on to start your own company.
Yeah, not necessarily right after it, because I studied in Italy. I did my master's there. It was a marketing master's, and when I got back, I did decide that I wanted to work in good food, you know, on my own behalf, because I felt like working on your own or starting your own company makes it so much easier to make impact instead of just being a radar in a very big hole. So when I came back from Italy, I decided I wanted to work start up a good food company. And I went on to talking to all these people that I found interesting or inspiring. And one of them was the back then the commercial director of Markt, which is one of the Dutch only sustainable supermarket chains. And he told me, you know, you have to come and work here. So with little to no work experience, I thought, okay, well, maybe we should, you know, give this a start first. So it took some time before I started Max's Mints. I worked at Markt. I did their category management and marketing. And then I worked at a foundation that researches into how sustainable and healthy products in supermarket are. And somewhere along the way, the idea for Max's Mints came up, and my father and I, because it's our company, we founded Max's Mints.
Was that your first, or like, is this company your first encounter with entrepreneurship at least?
No, I don't think so. I always made a conscious choice to work at small companies because, you know, it gave me the feeling of how does it work starting a company. Also Markt, back at the day, they were like 5 years old. We had 40 people, I think, in headquarters. So it was a small company, still not the same than just being really starting something. And then the company afterwards was also very small. And then during my time at the foundation I just mentioned, I was also involved in a peanut butter startup. You know, they really only just recently started. And we're trying to figure out, you know, how do we get this in a solid go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it wasn't my first encounter, though. Nothing really compares to doing something yourself.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more about Max's Mints, maybe. Start there.
Sure. So at Max's, we are on a mission to help people feel fresh and go green. Well, in our case, with one mint at a time. And the reason why we started Max's Mints is I do this with my father, and he used to have a background in candy, basically. And I used to be in good food. So we went on to looking, okay, what can we do together? And what we saw, at least in the Netherlands, is that if you look in the supermarket at the candy shelves, there's cookies trying to do better. There's chocolate trying to do better. But at the mint section, we've got the same brands, well, who've been around for 25 to 100 years. And it's not that they're necessarily doing something wrong, but we also don't really see the effort to try to do things better.
Yeah.
So we just saw the opportunity to go and make a better product. And of course, having a better product is it's a wide stretch.
Yeah.
So what we started off by doing is thinking, what does a better product mean? When do we think we make a better product than the ones we found on the shelves? And so in the end, it turned out to be that Max's Mints are organic. They're 100% natural. We don't use gelatin, which some of the other mint brands do have. We package them in a social workplace here in the Netherlands. So we have people with disabilities who package them, and they're very proud of the product when they see it on the shelves. And we try to use environmentally friendly packaging. I mean, packaging never is environmentally friendly, but as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So basically, those are are the underlying sustainability topics we chose. And of course, there's much more you can do.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the basis.
And how old is it now?
How old?
Yeah.
We've been around for over 5 years now.
Right. So I can imagine, especially when Corona came along, that was a tough challenge.
Yes, it is.
What was that period like for you guys?
Well, if I look at what we've done with Maxis Mint so far, I mean, I don't know if you know the saying, but they say, you know, never start, you know, you shouldn't wait to start until the product's finished because you're too late. So I think when we started back in the day, we started with 4 flavors and it wasn't good enough yet. You have to make a start and then get the consumer feedback. So the first year we were just playing around and seeing how this thing, you know, is anyone even waiting for new mints?
Yeah.
And then I think the second year we tried to improve the product with all the feedback we had. And then the third year we had these new products and we started selling them internationally and went everywhere. And, you know, I was super overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then in year 4, we decided, okay, we need to get back to basis. The Netherlands is our country. This is where we have to find out what kind of retail outlets are waiting for our products. Where do people want to buy this? And you were making these steps into like train stations and leisure, and that's when everything closed down. So it was really tough. I mean, peppermint is something people eat when they're on the way.
Yeah.
And no one was on the way. So yeah, it was tough. And we really did have to make, you know, a big switch in our mindset in, okay, what is the next thing we're going to do right now? So I think in the meantime, we launched several new products, and instead of growing in the Netherlands in the out of home types of retail channels, we grew internationally in the organic retail channel. So, for example, in Germany, in like the Eco Plaza from Germany, but also in Spain, we just launched in Center Parks in UK. So I
think that's one of the crucial elements of entrepreneurship, right? This being able to pivot.
Yeah.
I'm also interested about this transition. So especially this first year, as you described, you were trying a lot of things. Did you make a hard cut with your former job where you're like, okay, see ya? Or was that a gradual transition? How did you deal with that phase?
Well, I left Markt, the supermarket chain, because everyone was, you know, so into the business and working so hard on it that my entire imagination of what my company could look like just disappeared because I was too Markt minded.
Right.
And I especially was looking for a job that allowed me to work in my field, so good food for 3 to 4 days a week, just a little bit more sane working hours. So the space would be there to invent or create my own company.
Yeah.
So no, it went gradually. I mean, I really decided, okay, I want to start my company next to another company.
Yeah.
And so the whole development of the product I did while working at the foundation ? And the launch, you know, when launching, I stopped at ? too.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah, because the reason why I ask is obviously as part of the whole quarter life crisis topic, one of the main things that I see coming back, not in myself, but also just in people I talk to, is this getting started, making a change.
Yeah.
Usually people struggle with even moving because they're like, what if it goes wrong? So that's why I'm curious with most of the people that I interview, like how do you go about that transition? What is, from your perspective, obviously the best way to deal with that you actually do something rather than standing still and dreaming?
Well, I think I might be a dreamer, but I'm also not afraid to fail. And I think to be an entrepreneur, to be a good one, I don't want to say I'm a good one, but you need to train your ability to be able to fail, because you will many times, and it's basically part of the job.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't like failing, I don't know if it's your,
for you.
if it's your profession.
Yeah.
And
where did you get that particular skill set from? Because it doesn't get taught at school. So
no, I think there's many things that are not taught in school that could be very good. Where did I get that? I don't know. I think I just failed enough to,
Right.
find out that it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as of course, everyone, or for me, sometimes when I fail afterwards, I can feel either very down or I tell myself, you haven't failed, you've learned something. But it's a conscious decision. It's a decision on how to look at it.
Right.
And you need people around you for that as well. I mean, if sometimes you just can't do it alone, and then you find some partners to talk to. And, but then also, I think the transition, it differs for everyone. I do believe that if you really want to give something a shot, you have to do it like with everything you have. So it's very hard to do it next to another job.
Yeah.
But there's a point, there's a point you have to make the switch. So for me, it was we do the development while working at the job. I mean, before that, I didn't have a company. And then once the product was ready to be launched, I needed to give it my full attention to make it happen. So that's where I made the cut to stop my job.
Yeah.
And at least, especially at the beginning, maybe you can give yourself like a deadline. I gave myself 1 or 2 years. And if it doesn't work, then at least you've tried.
One of the recurring advices that I've also heard come up is that you need to start telling people your ambitions. Yeah. How did you do that?
Yeah, I did that. I did that at my former job, and it was really scary, because that was a startup too. And they were in a phase they had launched with a very big grant from the lottery, from the Dutch lottery, a very big grant, which is a very strange startup situation because there was so much money just becoming less and less over time. And then over time, they had to invent a business model with it. So, I mean, I was working on that, and then at the same time, I was working at my company.
Yeah.
It was very scary to show the product because, I mean, they knew how hard it is. And then I came up like, haha, look at my new product.
Yeah.
But at the same time, exactly as you say, that's what makes it real. That's what makes it, you can get yourself, you can make yourself accountable for it. Yeah.
I'm curious about what it's like being a woman in this industry. Do you experience anything when it comes to that?
Well, okay, I'm gonna be honest now.
Yeah.
I don't see it as I think it's a plus for me, but maybe also because I'm very I think in much of the time it doesn't really matter whether you're a woman or a guy. But then sometimes it does, but you can make it into a strength, because for me it's very easy as a relatively young woman, or at least that's how I like to see myself, to also, to play the part. So I can sometimes just be the innocent, oh, is that how it works? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we have the downside of it, we should also have the plus side of it. Maybe the hardest thing is not even being perceived as a woman, but just being one, in sense of I'm not hard, I'm not a negotiator. That's just not my, that's not how I am. But I also think that's not how women in general usually are. I mean, in comparison to men. So that's something I really need to work on, because I have to stand up for me and my company, which maybe is easier for like a general man than it is for me. So that might be the downside, but then on the upside, I also get, the sympathy and I don't. Yeah, I think it's. I think it has pluses and minuses, as it does with being a man.
Of course. You mentioned briefly just now about downsides. Would you say there's any downsides to chasing your passion?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, it's hard in a sense that. It's, if things work out great, it's perfect because it was your idea. But if they don't, it's also your, it's also on your account.
Yeah.
And when before we started, I was always under the impression that if you have a good product, looking good, tasting good at a good price level, it will just work. Yeah. And that's just not how the world works.
What's the extra thing? What's going to make it work?
Yeah, it's so many things. It's it's just having someone in front of you with who you have a click or not. It's whether it's the right timing or not. It's there's so many factors that make a product work or not? And I just didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So it's not hard in a sense that, it's not nice to do it, or, it's not fulfilling, because it's very fulfilling. But at the same time, it's also, it's a struggle. I mean, you're trying to make something that just wasn't there. So sometimes, when I'm at that path in my head, I try to realize how many hundreds of thousands people are walking around with my product, which, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people who've bought a can of Max's, which is an insane number. I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
But that, the day after, I can think like it's not enough, and we don't grow fast enough, and it's on my account. How do I make the change? And you really have to find it in yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of, asking your boss, what do I do next to make a success out of it?
And how that part is very interesting to me, especially the part of looking at the numbers too much.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that's with a podcast or in business, you look at sales or you look at views or more.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself grounded in that, in not getting too obsessed, I guess, with these numbers, but rather with the bigger mission?
I guess the strategy depends upon the moment, but first of all, trying to look back and, if you think about who you were 1 year ago versus now, I mean, what I'm doing now is something I couldn't even have imagined last year. But, if you just keep looking forward, it's never enough. So sometimes I try to deliberately think, okay, what is it we were doing last year?
Yeah.
And then also...
one step at a time, then, I guess.
Yeah, it's a one step at a time thing. And also just talking to people and telling them about my product and hearing their feedback. Wow, this is so cool. And I never realized this was an option. Or when people tell me that they have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the best feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
That's what it's about. I want to help as many people as possible to go green, even if it's with something so small as a mint.
Yeah.
And seeing a difference, by seeing people who bring them is really cool.
How are you currently making a difference? Because I feel like you missed that part in your in your business pitch.
Well, first of all, when we started, we were just thinking about how to make this as good product as possible. And only later I realized, okay, it's nice that we make an organic product, but what's the difference that we make with it? So it was only recently, like last year, that we started measuring our impact. And what we know now is that with every 160 grams of our mint, we make 1 square meter of soil being treated organically. And being treated organically means there's no, how do you call that? There's no synthetic fertilizers. No, it's sane ground basically. What we also know is that for every for every can we make, someone works in our social workplace for 2.5 minutes. So we can just make the count. How many people have we helped working at the social workplace? People with a disability who need a job as well, and who want something fulfilling. So we're more and more measuring to see what's the difference we make.
Yeah.
And we're looking for this year to also, but thus far, we're still really establishing the company, but we're looking to see what can we do with the profits we're making. So, for example, if our mission, as our mission is to help people feel fresh and go green, we're trying to see how can we turn that into something farther than just mint. So there's many people around the world who want to go green. Or there's also a lot of soil that needs to regreen. So how can we link that together?
Yep.
But that's still a quest.
Nice. You mentioned you started this with your dad.
Yeah.
What's it like having family as a co-founder?
Well, I don't know anything else than having my family as a co-founder. But I think it's super cool. I mean, in our family, I used to talk to my mom a lot. And now sometimes she picks up the phone, hi, this is the assistant of Peter.
Yeah.
I think the good thing with family is, you'll always be there for each other. So it's a very safe way of working together. Whereas I can imagine with, I hear sometimes people who start with a co-founder who, was a friend and in the end, is more of a
Yeah.
associate,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And that's, I mean, that will never happen for us because he's my dad. But there's also difficulties, of course, especially in the beginning. I was really searching, like, okay, how do I call him now when there's other people at the table as well? Do I
Yeah.
say, hey, Dad, or do I say, Peter? Or, you know, you just have to find how the new relation works together. But, you know, 5 years in, we know how to behave.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then also, I think it really took us a long time to take work out of the conversation when we were together, like privately. We used to talk about the mint all the time and drove my mom crazy.
Yeah.
So I think now, you know, we really try to keep it separate. Either we call or see each other on a work.
Yeah.
Work.
Did you guys ever struggle with like a how do you say that, more of an authority issue? I don't know what your experience of your dad is, but maybe he has like, I could imagine, at least, you know, if I think about myself starting something with my dad, I think that could be a massive struggle because
most of the time he just lets me run my company. So we're with the three of us. I am responsible for marketing and sales. My dad, he's responsible for finance and also has the most strategic background. So, you know.
Okay.
And then we have Dominique working with us, who is in charge of all operations. So we do all have our own, you know, field of responsibility, responsibility, which makes it easy, of course, because, you know, some things are just my responsibility and others are his. But then, of course, sometimes, you know, I get this phone call, I want you to do this and this and this now.
Fair.
But most of the time, you know, I think he sees it as being in the background and it's my company.
Okay.
So he doesn't, you know, he doesn't interfere too much.
Yeah.
Of course,
No, okay.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be nice also to just be a father and a daughter again.
Yeah.
But that will happen at one point.
Yeah, at some point. So obviously the podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis. Would you say you had a quarter life crisis?
Would I say I had a quarter life crisis? Well, maybe. I think in my generation, and also for me, you know, being able to do everything is quite a tough given fact. Or, I mean, so like I told earlier, I did a bachelor's in Amsterdam, and then I did a master's of marketing in Italy, and I wouldn't have minded to stay there, but then I came back.
Yeah.
And everything was possible. And where do you start when everything is possible?
Yeah.
So I guess if I look at my quarter life crisis, it was just choosing how to find out what it is I really want.
Yeah.
And then the next step is how to get there.
Yeah.
I still don't know if I truly know. I really like what I'm doing right now, but, you know, doesn't say I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
No, exactly.
I don't know if we ever find out or figure it out. And I also don't know if we should. I mean, how do you call that? Change of scenery makes you eat again.
I would tend to agree with you that, or at least that the crisis is almost necessary in order to figure out. But that does make sort of, I guess one of the main reasons why I interview people is also to see, are there ways to navigate it easier? Are there ways to become more acceptant of that crisis? Because I think often people tend to go out the way to avoid it. So do you have any tips when it comes to figuring out what like path to follow? Or, you know, exactly as you mentioned, with there's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Is there a way to say, this is what I'm going to do for now?
I guess for me, it's a trial and error.
Okay.
As well as also just trusting that if this is the path you chose, this, you know.
Yeah.
I heard once that you have people who are maximizers and people who are, I think, satisficers. I think those were the terms. But basically, the satisficer is someone who sees something that meets their wishes and is happy. And then you have the maximizer who thinks, okay, this could be it, but is there anything better?
Yeah.
And especially in the last situation, it's difficult, you know, because it's never good enough.
No. Or there's always more.
There's always more, but, you know, it's also about finding, you know, trusting in yourself that, you know, this is the way it should go.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, make a change.
Yeah.
your path is not. It's not as if the decision you make right now is something you need to do for the rest of your life. If you want to do something else, then you go do something else. But first, you have to try.
I think especially that part, because I find it interesting in your case also with having two young kids as well. Does that? I believe that makes it harder to say, you know what, it's not for me anymore. I'm moving on, right? Do you ever experience that or?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think it's also the example I want to give them. I mean,
yeah.
if you want to live a
Nice.
happy life, then there's only one person responsible, and it's you. So I try to read a lot of books, and I like I mentioned, I walk around with a coach every 6 weeks just to, navigate again. Hey, am I still doing the right things at the right time? And sure, kids are. No, I don't think that the kids don't have an impact on whether my work decisions are good. Maybe only, how does it work with the hours and the work-life balance? But that would.
So we have a new segment in the show. I think by now you'll be the third person that does it, where I got my community members to write out questions.
Super cool.
You already asked at the beginning what the pod is for, so you are allowed to pick one question out of there. And feel free to answer it. You can also, I always wrote the usernames on it, so you can feel free to say the name.
And are these like general questions they ask for everyone, or what's the?
I just asked them to give me potential questions that are on their mind, deep questions, and that's what they put in.
All right. I think the person is
Ruangelo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you still see personal or professional failure as failure, even though you learned something meaningful, amazing from it? Well, I think I already answered this one. I think there's a saying called, you need to fail forward. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
I think this is what we're doing. We're failing forward, and every time we learn. And I think the most important thing is sitting down afterwards and thinking, what could I have done better? How to avoid this next time. And it's something I had to learn. So right now, when something doesn't work, afterwards we sit together. What have we learned from it?
Yeah.
And then if you bring that into your next event, whatever, it's no. Yeah, sure. Sometimes things are failing, but I don't stand too long still for it, because, it doesn't bring you anything.
Yeah. Nice. That's a nice answer. Then I'm already at my last question. And that question is, what does the future hold for Floor?
Well, so we are available in the Netherlands as well as many other European countries. And last week we announced that a company called Jet Drinks, they're a distributor in the Netherlands, will be responsible for for the sales of Max's Mints in the Netherlands, which opens me up to just put down our brand a lot stronger. So at least for the upcoming couple of years, I'll really be working on, building a brand with Max's Mints, and also giving it more foundation on the impact side. Also adding new products, because in the end, we want to help people make greener choices in the candy segment. So the candy segment is a lot bigger than just mint.
Yeah.
But who knows what I'll be doing in 10 years? I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, and your story, of course.
Likewise. Thanks for the invite.
And I'm very excited to see what more Max will bring. Thank you.